Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm Jeff Howard, and I have Jess Paul right across the table from me. Hey, Jess.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeff. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. And I will joke, I normally make a point of asking how to pronounce someone's name, no matter how, like, I have the simplest name in the world to pronounce. My best friend of almost 50 years has one of the hardest names to pronounce, so I normally ask everyone, but with you, I just knew.
I did that on purpose.
I can say Jess Paul.
Yeah, Jess Paul, that has a little history in its own. It's when I was 16 years old and I was developing my first social media, my mom was like, "You're not putting your name on that internet. We don't know what that is all about. Like, it could be dangerous." So I phonetically shortened my very long name my very Italian name of Jessica Palomera to Jess Paul, and it rhymed with one of the most famous guitar players and makers of all time, and that fit very well in with one of the most pivotal things I ever did with my career, which was a rock show, a rock web series that I talked about my favorite rock and roll music.
So we're barely a minute in, and I already know. So Jess Paul, you came up with the stage name as a young person.
Yeah.
Like, how old were you when you did that?
16.
16.
Mm-hmm. That was the first time I ever used that name.
So smart, and perfect with the spelling and everything.
Yeah.
Very cool. It's so funny that I never associated you with Les Paul.
Yeah, I guess you wouldn't if you don't kind of know about where I began. But I mean, it was only coincidence. That was coincidence that it did fit that well when I started Rec Radio. But it also, I mean, just like you said, people have hard names to pronounce, and I didn't want anyone to ever forget mine. So
true, and right, and the longer version. I mean, you went from like 8 syllables or 7, but anyhow. Let me introduce you, and then we'll dive in, because you were already sharing awesome stuff. But I have to introduce you, because your film Burying Baby, which you were the producer, co-writer, and lead actor of.
Yeah, exactly.
Fair enough. Was at the Sherman Oaks Film Festival in 2024. Took home the Programmer's Prize for Exceptional Filmmaking.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Such a good film. As you know, I love it. I emailed you about it early and often because, What can I say? It's a great film, and it's so authentic and true to life, and yet has a nice twist. So,
yeah, that is true. It is kind of hard to talk about this movie because I used a very old format that I was experimenting with. I mean, this movie was written 8 years ago, I believe. I kept toggling on the math on when the final draft actually came out, but 8 years ago, I was experimenting with this this format of writing where we're writing a short that is easy to produce with a single location, a couple of actors, one scene basically that you're capturing, because I had already started indie acting, and I watched as some writer-directors were making these ambitious, gigantic pieces of film or web series or whatever they wanted to do that was honestly, it wasted a lot of time and resources when people started moving away or cutting their hair, because it was all volunteer projects. So this was an experiment of that, but it also dealt with some material, some storytelling that was very relevant to almost anyone I know.
Absolutely. Well, the title "Burying Baby" is all the hints we need to give people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the word burying implies it's a grief film.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm a huge fan of grief films, as you know, because I just think we live in a society. Well, we could dive into Burying Baby, but I'm supposed to get your personal history first.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna cut myself off. I was gonna say motherfucker in response to something you said, and then brag that I got to curse first, because we have the explicit box checked for this podcast. So
okay.
So I don't know if you got a bad mouth like I do.
I do. I was just at Disney yesterday for the first time going to any Disney park in my life, and me and my bestie had to constantly shame ourselves for going, fuck yeah, just all day, just being so excited, because that's how we express ourselves.
Yeah, and then you turn to the side, you're like, oh, small children.
Whoops.
I just use the word you hear your parents use all the time.
That's, yeah. Where are they not hearing it, really?
Oh, my God. I'm tempted to dive into that. Was your first Disney visit?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Good for you.
34-year-old, yeah.
Good for you, because I'm not a Disney guy. I try.
I wasn't either. I'm not either. Like, me and my friend would make fun of Disney adults, but then we found ourselves just squealing with glee on stuff like Space Mountain.
That's the thing, is the rides are actually fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel like you're a child again, like you eschew all adult responsibilities for a day, and it was perfect. It was just me and my best friend, Etika Marks, and it was just the two of us, so, we could make all of the kind of last minute decisions on what to do next pretty easily, and I can't complain. It was an awesome vacation day.
And actually, Disneyland is great for a duo, right? Because there's so many two-person seating situations. I
actually didn't really think of that far, but that's so true.
Yeah, and then a lot of times you get to move up. Well, anyway, so Bearing Baby, people, it's still on the festival circuit.
It is, yeah.
So people cannot watch it yet.
Not yet.
But we'll avoid spoilers, but we'll talk about it when we get to it in your life story. But yeah, I'm just asking for your life story.
Yeah.
You are a creative person.
Yeah.
You act, you write, you produce. What got you into this? Like, where'd you grow up? And go for it.
Jeff, you said that you were pretty good at guessing birth order.
Oh, I did say that, but I warned you about. Yeah. Oh, so you have siblings?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, you want to guess mine?
How many siblings?
I have 2.
There's 2. I'm actually gonna guess that you're the oldest.
You're right.
Yeah,
you are right.
That's because you have your shit together in the way. What gave it away was the little bit you said about writing Bearing Baby, that you were looking at other people's productions that you were acting in, and seeing how they were overcomplicating stuff. So you kind of had that business mind, right? The producer's mind.
Yeah.
So the producer's mind is what gave me the hint that you're the eldest. Because the eldest has to be responsible.
Yeah, that's really funny. Yeah, it's fun. You guessed right, but when I think of birth order, I always thought it was pretty interesting. So my 2 siblings are twins, fraternal, boy and girl, Katie and Kenny Palmera. And blast them. And I always thought it was funny because I do know a little bit about birth order too in the theories. And second child will be said to be either very similar in thematics, like interests, and be kind of directly either competing or doing with the older sibling, or they will be incredibly dissident, to the older sibling, rivaling, opposite personality and interests. And, me being the creative one, my sister is a film editor. In fact, we worked side by side for a lot of our lives. I probably wouldn't be the same kind of creative if I wasn't making films with her all the way through our childhood and adolescence. And then my brother is an engineer, and he... Did I mention my brother's an engineer? You did.
Yeah, okay.
I noted that. And so, again, they're twins with each other, and they were very close growing up, but... we found ourselves in our different little worlds and personalities.
I got lucky on that guess because being the older sibling when there's twins below you, it's got to be a whole different vibe, right? Like that's you have the older sibling stuff, but like they came into the world as a duo. And you were probably how much older are you?
2 years.
2 years, standard 2 years.
Yeah.
So you weren't ready to babysit or anything.
No.
But very early, you probably were aware that like they had a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am fiercely independent to my detriment. Like if we want to jump into my relationships and everything, it gets really, really weird. I often talk about myself as an island and how I came into this world alone, and I almost want to die alone. Like we were just talking even earlier about like renting my whole life and how I've come to a pretty positive, kind of resolution of that is the fate of my generation, a lot of people in my generation, but also it kind of fits me because I want to constantly be untethered to everything. And a mortgage, feels like a tether.
Right. You value your freedom.
Yeah, my freedom to kind of I mean, I want to say pick up and go, but you should see my bedroom. It is covered with color and souvenirs and everything. So that's a little bit counterproductive to me, like getting on the road, getting in a van and just like living by the ocean, but whatever.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so let me go back. So where were you growing up?
Yeah, I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so over on the East Coast, little kind of smaller market working town.
But also a college town, right? I actually knew a guy from Pittsburgh pretty well.
Yeah.
In my 30s.
Yeah. We're very creative, but we're also, I dare to say, ugly. Like, well, we're like notice one of like for one thing, our local accent has been named on a giant listicle by something like USA Today as the ugliest accent that has ever come to fruition, including the one that is still in the foundation of my voice to this day. And but it's a creative town, and even there right now, there are a lot of people that are still really DIYing, filmmaking. That's where I started. That's where I thrive, to the degree where I've questioned kind of lately what exactly I want from this town in particular, from Los Angeles, because I'm coming on a dozen years of film acting, yet... And I don't necessarily have, like, my must-join SAG card, and I don't know if I want it, which sounds very blasphemous to anyone working in this industry. I'm very aware of how much good the union has done for actors and their well-being and their own autonomy and their safety in this industry, but I'm a little bit too off the wall with... Again, being untethered to something, to a strict code of rules, even if it comes with a lot of safeties and structure.
I get that. At the risk of pissing off thousands of people, I was actually in a very similar boat at one point, because when you work in the indie world, and the budgets are what they are, as soon as someone starts saying, "Oh, do a low-budget modified thing with one of the unions or whatever," it just makes things untenable. And I once was at like a dinner or something, and I said something along the lines of, I was not anti-WGA, but I said the host of the dinner party was apparently a WGA writer. Right. By the way, hack bullshit TV writer whose dad had been like a TV writer. So he's one of those Nepo babies who has no talent, just, but dad's agent, So in the 70s and 80s, the reason why television sucks so bad is because of that. Yeah. This kind of guy. So when I said, I was like, working for these producers and writing a script for them, they said this guy, and someone said, "Oh, are you a union?" And I'm like, "No." And this, like, the budget we're working with here, like that would like make it untenable to make. Yeah. And the guy like literally like set down his fork and gave a little 3-minute speech about how, like, because of the union, his dad had a life and he has a life and he went to college. I'm like, I get it. Yeah. But I also wanted to like say like, oh, so that's why, yeah, fine. I was really turned off by the guy, but it kind of sounds like what you're saying, right? Is you have, as soon as you get the SAG card, all of a sudden you have to say to yourself, like, it was tough during the strike being a festival because actors were not supposed to do anything.
Yeah.
And we would be showing a film and the actors, get emails saying, "Oh, the actors really want to come, but they don't want to cross the line." I'm like, a film festival devoted to indie film is kind of the perfect place to go during the strike.
That's kind of what I thought.
But they weren't allowed to go.
Yeah, I'm curious about that speech that he gave. I understand him wanting to stand up for what he believes in. It's almost like a Christian standing up for their own religion. It shouldn't be applying to other people that have their own stance on things and their own path. Well,
and he really just should have looked at me and said, "Well, if you get really good at this, you'll be in the union. But for now, you're not good enough, and you're working for, sleazy guys in small apartments in Beverly Hills who call themselves producers." Whatever. He could have been rude to me, but instead he was rude to me the other way. But then I looked him up actually, and he was really not a talented person. Okay. And the union is good at, we know I'm pro-union all the way.
Yeah.
But we know that, like, you know, the 0.01% who aren't good, that's who the unions really protect. Mm-hmm. I mean, a guy I grew up with is a LAPD lieutenant. And, like, he'll tell you, like, yeah, the union protects the bad cops too. But there's not many of them, but that's what runs everything the wrong way. But let's not talk about that. Let's talk.
Why not? I don't know. I think that's really, this is something that people don't talk about enough. I mean, what you just said was so true about, I mean, the macro look on so many different groups. People of different religious groups, people of different unions, people of different ethnicities, that there is a mixed bag, and that is of every kind of person. And that's why there really can be no such thing as prejudice, because if you try to apply these cliches to a whole group of people, you will be sorely mistaken, because everyone's so individual. As much as I'm pro group that stand up and fight for each other, I'm also very, pro individual, at least seeing the individuality in everybody.
It would be, I guess my perspective on particularly SAG, the screen, would be that their allowances for indie stuff is still sort of very out of touch with the indie world, right? Like they still make it impossible for people to work with indies and stay union compliant, right? Because, I guess whatever is the term, guerrilla filmmaking. Is that what we should call true indie? Because
not really.
Because there's like the fake indie of like when you're on an A24 set or something. Oh, yeah. You're not really indie, but they call that indie. They used to call Fox Searchlight indie.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
And it's like, a $1 to $5 million feature is not what I'm talking about. Yeah. Like, you should let a SAG actor.
Well, I guess that's the whole point of the union, and those are the gifts that I'm giving up when I don't fully, when I wouldn't join the union. Like, to the degree where that's why I said I question what I'm exactly doing here in Los Angeles. I'm here because there are so many more opportunities, even for indie filmmaking, every single day on the casting calls. I came here first to be an actor, but just like how I started my career, if I can, I'll put it in air quotes, if you can even call it a career, because, it is kind of just the passion part of my life, the passion side hustle, the passion hobby. I started producing because I felt like you needed all hands on deck to actually complete something. Big budget or small budget, it's a miracle when a thing gets actually finished.
It is.
So many
all right, so wait, you're growing up in Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. When did you first get interested in performing?
Yeah. So I wanted, like any child, I wanted lots of attention. And I started off wanting to be a pop singer. It was so selfish. It was so superficial. I just wrote a script for a video I'm about to produce, actually, for another festival runner who has a podcast, and he asked for my 3 movie crushes as Valentine's Day is approaching. And I started talking about what is a crush but a projection of an adolescent's expectations and desires in a relationship. And so, when it comes to what I thought a career would be, what I want for my future was very selfish and me centralized. It was really, and I continued to do that. Like, growing up in Pittsburgh, I started myself. Rec Radio, my rock show, was the first thing that I ever did that gave me any kind of hope, because when I was a teenager, thinking of these lofty ideas, how I'd grow up to become a waitress who's discovered as an actress, in a diner. I was ready to do that. I was ready to go to school, maybe for acting or maybe for something else. And being 15 or 16 years old. And then I went to a job fair at a neighboring school. My school was humongous, so it was a giant gym that they dressed up with all kinds of tables and stuff that were decorated with these trifolds, and everybody there to promote their own companies or careers. And there was one person that was representing film, and I really wanted to be a film actor, not necessarily a theater actor. I always saw those as kind of two different avenues and styles of performing. There was only one person there to represent film. To this day, I don't remember what his name was. And it's so dumb because I save everything. You think I would have saved this pamphlet. But when I was in the bus on the way there, I saw that he had credits in like Friends and stuff like that, and he was a writer. And when I spotted him, I realized like he had this big table with nothing on it but a script right in the center. It really seemed like from his demeanor and from his presentation that the principal must have known him. It was like, dude, can you please? We have no one here to represent this. This is like supposed to be the arts and entertainment job fair. Can you please, my buddy from high school or something? I'm making this part up, but I'm assuming. Can you please come to my job fair? And so I walked up to this guy, and at this time, I had just started drawing again since I was a child. I had a sketchbook. I would carry my sketchbook everywhere, so I had that in hand as well. I mean, going to the Arts and Entertainment Festival or job fair, it made sense. But I go up to this guy, and we have a very short, superficial conversation until I say, yeah, I've always wanted to become an actress. Do you have any tips for me? Like the standard, obvious question. And he goes, yeah, you got to suck a lot of dick. He said that to a 15, 16-year-old. And I don't know what else he said to everybody else who came up to talk to him, but I was like, oh, okay. And I mean, and he might have continued that sentence for a little bit. And I'm not even sure, like, to this day, when I tell this story to people, they meant, like, they said, did he mean, like, metaphorically, like, you have to pay your dues, or did he, I'm like, it doesn't matter. It was quite a jarring thing to say to somebody. I assumed he meant actually, but either way, it was something that gave me pause.
Yeah, that was not an analogy.
Yeah,
that was,
as we learned.
Was... Wow, that's the most inappropriate thing you can say to a teenage female.
When I tell this story, a lot of people make this dude as the villain, but I feel like he saved me.
I don't see him as the villain, but I would have preferred he said something like, if you go for this, there are men who will be predators.
Yeah. Either way.
Right? Like in theory, he was giving the warning about predators, but he said it in such an offhand way.
Yeah. Either way, at the moment, I politely said, okay, thank you. And I just went on to the next tables. And then I ran into an artist. I do remember his name to this day. His name was David M. Bowers. And he was this fantastical Renaissance style oil painter. You please Google him. Before you even Google me, Google David M. Bowers to check out some of his paintings. What he would do is create these traditional looking, like I said, Renaissance style, gigantic paintings, oil paintings, but he would add a fantasy element, like underneath a woman's dress being a bird cage, instead of her legs.
I've seen stuff like that.
Yeah, you might have seen his work. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, maybe.
It's gorgeous. And we had a little chat. He was much more polite and welcoming. And he looked at my sketchbook and he said, oh, wow, this is like better than I was drawing at your age. So I went to art school. I decided that day to go to art school, and that's what I did.
But I'm going to interrupt. So were there school plays or anything?
Yeah, it was funny. Wicked just came out. When I got into 8th grade, I did get one of the leads. And so I was very excited to go on to high school. Wow, story of my life that keeps repeating. I decided to go on to high school and was ready to be welcomed with open arms, to be like the lead in the next plays. But of course that doesn't happen. They treat seniority, even if they don't treat people with seniority, like they there's so many more people to pick from. Like I said, I had a giant school, and I, year after year, was not getting into the plays. So instead, what I did was I went to the community center across the street and did little plays, to the degree where me and my band of theater reject friends, we actually put on Wicked 2 years in a row, illegally. I don't even think that they could get us for it because we didn't do anything. Any tips that we collected, we donated to children's hospitals. So come get us. Whoever produced that movie. I loved it. I absolutely loved the musical that came out. But that was me just, again, doing my own thing. And
right. You even you had the independent spirit even at the high school play level.
Yeah.
High school musical.
And how much more indie could high school plays get, you know?
Yeah.
Still.
But I get it too, because of a large high school, well, obviously, yeah, they always give seniority to the seniors,
Sure.
right? And then junior, yeah. And so, yeah, if you want to have a fair shake, often you learned in your teens to just do what you want to do instead of wait for permission.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then of course when it came to college, I was not even intending on going into the theater. I wasn't going for theater. I was there to be a visual artist. I particularly picked I made up my own major, like by combining like minors and majors to create a kind of a visual marketing major of sorts, so that I could, because I thought that if I was going to make any money at this, then I would go into marketing, with...
Right, so you had a bit of a practical mind too. That's the...
Yeah.
I'll mention the eldest sibling thing, but yeah. So
Right.
so you didn't go into college with the I'm going to be a pure artist.
Yeah.
No, you actually were thinking I don't want to whether we're student debt or whatever, but I don't want to graduate and then be like, hey, I can paint.
Yeah, I was still I was still thinking of that even at that time. Even to be an actor was so lofty, but it wasn't until the first year that I was in college. So I auditioned for a musical, and I actually don't. It makes sense why I wasn't hired for some of the plays, or some of the musicals at least. I brought in a piece of sheet music to a play I actually was in high school, one of the community theater plays. One of my characters sang, but I printed out a piece of sheet music that didn't have a time signature on it. And the person at the piano noted that. And I said, well, just figure it out. And he, in spite of me, started playing the song in whole notes. So I'm like, I'm just going to sing a cappella. And I did that and didn't ever get into the college plays. But I thought, if I don't get into the college plays, I'm going to do this little inkling, this thing I have in the back of my mind, where it was the first year I had my own laptop and just was able to discover music on my own instead of sitting in the middle of my dining room, where the rest of my parents could see what I was doing. And I was on this laptop discovering both at the same time pop punk and emo music as I was discovering YouTube and the DIY style of so many of these shows, specifically this show called What the Buck by Michael Buckley. And he was this flamboyantly gay man who sat and talked about Disney stars and pop culture. And I was obsessed with the show. I thought he was so funny. He talked so fast. And he was just a joy to watch for me. And I thought this is so exciting, because one day he did a kind of behind the scenes, and all he had was a green sheet behind him that ran his at the time, sort of high quality looking setup. And I'm like, well, I can do that. I can do that in my dorm room. And so, at 19 years old, I got a green sheet. I got some lights from my dad's, workbench in the garage, and just made my own green screen show where I wrote again, and you can't see, it's quotes jokes for the show when it came to all these pop punk and emo bands, what they were doing next, what they were coming out with, where they were touring. And it got popular for the time again. I eventually got up to 20,000 subscribers, and anything from 1,000 views per episode to 20,000.
Yeah, and that was kind of the golden era for YouTube, right? That was before there was too much.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's a very different world.
But it
now.
was an exciting time, because all of a sudden you could create and get right to an audience, which had never existed before.
And that's also the kind of learning that I do best, direct response, direct criticism, feedback, I guess you can call it. People were pointing out my accent before I knew I had one. They're like, where are you from? I'm like, what are you talking about? I speak with a perfectly, quintessential American accent. What are you talking about? So I was learning so much about myself and my performance style and my presence, my writing, my anything that you had to pick.
Right. So, and were you? I'm just asking this because you said performance style. Were you developing an on-screen character for this show, or were you just being fully just purely Jess?
Not a character. There is a conversation to be had, and a lot of people have had it on YouTube about what is an on-screen persona. And the only difference between me sitting here in front of this microphone or sitting in front of, well, more so sitting in front of a camera, I'll say, is that you aren't having a direct conversation with somebody. Nobody's asking you questions. Nobody's priming the next part of the conversation, so you have to structure it yourself. And also, you want to be entertaining. You don't want to, like if you're sitting at dinner with somebody, you have the luxury of being quiet for a few minutes to eat, or just letting time pass as you're watching other people. But you have to kind of be on your game. But I don't assume that I'm much more different than what I'm usually.
Right, so you were just being yourself, and you were super into music.
Yeah.
And so that was, which, I mean, I was, yeah. I mean, I don't know. There are people who aren't, right? Like, I was super into music my entire life.
Well, I mean, I've been afraid of these Q&A questions that you have at the end because I'm not actually that into mainstream movies.
Right.
I love coming to festivals, and I will be the person who watches the most and tries to engage with the people at the mixers about their actual films that I just watched. But I love that. I love talking to people directly about their art. But when it comes to mainstream movies, I have this millennial attention span where I have to be doing 3 things at once. So if I miss something in the movie because I wasn't looking at it at the time because I'm working on something else, then it's kind of useless to me. Movies also kind of get me. I think this is something I have to work through in my my therapy that doesn't exist, that I need to whenever I watch a movie, I get hypercritical, or I get very like of all the filmmaking, of all the actors and everything, and I can't see past that, which I'm sure a lot of filmmakers.
Yeah, you almost like a producer's brain. Yeah. Like you watch it with producer's brain, which makes sense because that is a skill. But I'll add that the podcast after this will be you answering the 4 questions. And if you want to name like favorite bands too, like
I mean,
why
I can
not?
talk about that much more easily.
We could even talk about best music movies, whatever. But because I have really bizarre music taste, so.
Oh, I want to know.
Well, that would be the next podcast. We can't talk about it now. Okay. But sorry to drop that. But so all right. So, by the way, I think it's really cool that you had that show in high school. Did you just...
It was college.
College. Yeah, it was college, okay.
Beginning of college, yeah.
Right.
And through college.
Right. So it was 16 where you came up with the...
16 was just the beginning of MySpace.
Whatever.
And it was a coincidence.
MySpace.
Yeah, it was a coincidence that it was a parody on Les Paul. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So college, you have that, and then... Like, it's still there, right? Like you don't have to pull that down.
No.
Like you almost have this time capsule.
Yeah.
Of what you loved and cared about in college. That's like fantastic.
That's true. I do. I mean, and I feel, my boyfriend the other day just watched one of my earliest films, like a film that isn't on, my website or anything. And he goes, we were talking about us looking different when we were younger, and I had just watched the film too, because I sent it to him or whatever, or mentioned it, and I had watched it with my sister, and because I see myself so often and hear myself, I don't have that usual problem that people do, that everybody does, where they hate the sound of their voice or they hate the way they look, because I'm so desensitized to it that it's just another person to me, and other people look fine, they sound fine to me. And so I was looking at myself, I'm like, and we were talking, and I'm like, yeah, I was watching that, and I don't think I look that much different. He goes, are you kidding me? like he was pointing it out when I was just like accepting for that's, I'm like, my face is kind of the same,
That's interesting, because I have some friends, I find that so interesting because I think that I was always me from like age really young.
Yeah.
And some people change a lot over the years. I have a friend who, well, needless to say, she's like one of the most lovely narcissists I know. She is so about herself, and she's like every birthday, everything, like she shows 50 pictures from throughout her life, right? Oh. And like a 2-year-old sitting on her dad's lap, like same face.
Oh, okay.
Same face she has today in her well, I haven't said her name, so I can say like she's almost my age. She's in her 50s,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like the face was the same at like 3. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like, but by the way, I also want to just compliment your objectivity of, because a lot of us do get butthurt watching ourselves on screen. I know I find it incredibly unpleasant to watch the Q&A videos from the festivals just because I'm just unaware of, you know.
That's exactly right. I was talking to my mom about this again over the Christmas break, as I call it, which I still have, apparently, because I go home at that point. She was saying about how she didn't like herself in photos too, but I was very blatantly trying to describe to her that's the most normal reaction anybody ever has if they're not looking at themselves constantly. I mean, even people that are looking at themselves constantly can be very self-critical, especially if other people are being very critical, like the celebrities that are constantly tweaking every little wrinkle. I mean, I have seen things in my face in movies that I haven't seen in the mirror because it's a different look, you know? So I mean, I can see it, but I also, over the years, I don't know if it's me getting older or just the more I watch myself, I just, I'm not as hard as a normal person is on myself. I think that's it. I don't look different. I'm not doing anything different, you know, than anyone else at my age. I just don't care as much.
Which is amazing. That's fantastic.
I think everybody should.
I think it's horrible. It upsets me as a male in our culture who has a 17-year-old female in his life and at 50, well, I won't give my wife's age, but when I see how they feel judged by their appearance in society, it upsets me that they feel there's so much value in appearance. And that I'm not lying when I say like they're beautiful and like no one's beautiful to everyone, you know, so stop like being so hard on yourself and saying, you know what I mean? And I really appreciate that you're able to say, I see different looks on myself, whatever, I'm fine with it. It's just what I look like. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. I think I was going to say, yeah, we can assume that the culture does put a lot of pressures on that, but we can also desensitize ourselves. Like it's not as easy as that. And I still, you know, every Christmas time I gain 10 pounds and panic every single year, even though it happens every time. I was just talking about this with my, you know, my little girlfriend. She has a blog, and I was, you know, commiserating over that feeling that it just never goes away, but I've come more to peace with it, you know.
Well, and if you've been, well, I don't know yet. So we're in college and we're doing, well, see, the reason I'm going back to your bio is because I'm curious just how much time, well, actually the YouTube thing, I was about to say that maybe you've also been able to be desensitized because you've seen yourself on camera over a few decades.
Yeah, so I did the YouTube show for 5 years, and that's where I didn't, like I said, I didn't go to performance school. I didn't go to theater school or anything like that. I became very self-discerning, or at least I tried to be, you know, over the years, watching myself, editing myself, writing myself, performing, retaping when I didn't like what I saw, and that's how it desensitized me. Sometimes to the degree where I don't notice if I'm doing a bad job anymore because I'm just like, that's just how I did it. Let's go on to the next, which is nice to have a director like Benjamin Carlucci, who I have to bring up is a huge part of Burying Baby. You know, I could talk about myself forever, but it is very, very advantageous and so comforting to have a director on my side that can, you know, push me or tell me.
Yeah, and who you trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been working together for, at this point, I mean, I said 8 years about the film. I was writing this film, you know, around when I met him. So we've been working together for a long time.
Oh, very cool. Mm-hmm. Very cool. All right, so where were we? So college, so fine arts, but with a marketing angle.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And college in Pennsylvania
I went to West Virginia Wesleyan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was the perfect distance. Like it was about 2 hours from my house. So, you know, I felt like I was experiencing some independence at the same time. still, if I needed my parents,
I went to college. It was just over a 90-minute drive from home.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you're far enough that they can't visit you.
Yeah.
But you're close enough that you can get home if you need to. It's kind of funny.
Mm-hmm. It was that was really sweet. Yeah. And so I went to Wesleyan, and I was pursuing that fine arts. In fact, my senior thesis project was what my teacher would call a poor man's movie, which was a comic book. I took the second feature that I ever wrote, and I took the inciting incident, 15 pages of a comic book. I made that inciting incident into, a single issue, which is very hard. It was one of the hardest projects I've ever done. It took so much time and so much learning and practicing to draw so many faces. I mean, I drew faces. That's all I ever did in my sketchbook. But to make it so that like every angle looked like the correct person, and I had so many reference pictures. It was such a learning experience. But I to this day really like it.
I mean, I'm going to state the most obvious fact, which is comic book / graphic novel is a storyboard.
Yeah,
right.
Course,
like you ended up storyboarding a film. Yes. Right? Which makes perfect sense. But that also shows just how clearly your vision was.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of people can write a script or write a story and, they don't know what the shots are supposed to look like per se. But you actually had that early.
I don't know if I've always questioned that. In fact, coming up through the indie circuit, through working with other directors, I was always interrogating them about when I was learning this, when I was DIY getting my education, which was to be almost every crew member at some point on a film, from makeup to actor to director, producer, and I always was asking them about their take on giving their script over to another director, or because I assume that most people are at least seeing the shots, if not writing them down, because they're usually not writing them down in a script of what it looks like, and are obviously either sorely or beautifully surprised whenever they see the final project, so I don't know. I can't believe that writers don't have a vision, even if it's not executed or written down.
Isn't it? Yeah, it's weird. And it's weird for me I don't read scripts much anymore because of course it's time consuming and I have hundreds and hundreds of films to screen. But a good writer makes you visualize what's on the screen anyway.
Yeah.
Like I remember lecturing writers, don't say close up, just describe their face.
Yeah.
And then your reader will see a close up.
Tip. Yeah.
Because like you're not supposed to put direction notes in a script because it should be left till later. But if you describe the look in their eyes, all of a sudden you've written a close up without they think they're directing it instead of you. It's great.
That's great.
All right, so you mentioned senior thesis. So you graduate. You graduate, and then, like, what comes next? Do you hightail it to L.A., or when do you get back into the act? Because there was very little acting in that era.
Well, okay, so when I did Rec Radio, like I said, it got me, YouTube partnership. It got me interviews with some of my favorite bands. My first interview was with Third Eye Blind, which was, like, to this day, one of my favorite bands. And I realized more than anything, people liked watching me.
Right. You were a YouTube creator. Like back then we called them YouTube creators, right? It wasn't influencer, it was creator.
Yeah. They still call themselves creators because it's much more production than selling. For the most part, you would like to think. And some videos I watch anymore are just commercials that are dressed up as, YouTube videos.
Right. So you kept it going the whole time.
5 years. So starting in my freshman year, and then that would be 1 year out of college. And I loved that I could, and basically too, what I often say is that I realized I didn't have to suck a lot of dick. I could literally, I'm my own dick, I can do this myself.
The bands didn't ask for a blowjob for the interview.
I mean, some of
which was
flirted,
a nice,
but it was not necessary. But
I try not to mention her too often, but I just have to share that I have a life partner who says, I don't understand the casting couch because if you blow them, why would he cast you if you've already blown him?
For sure.
Like,
yeah, no,
you know,
true.
right? Like, why
I
would you get
question
what
that
you
too.
want?
Yeah.
Like, they're not signing a contract
Right. No, that's true.
as one is. I don't want to get too graphic because it's in me to get too graphic. But I normally don't show that side.
One of my favorite music artists is Lana Del Rey, who created her own character. Like her real name is Lizzie Grant, and she created this very ethereal kind of trailer park princess, where she has this life where she, you know, dates men that are 30 years her senior, and she's on the open road, and she just wants to get high on the beach, and where was I going with her story there? Where were we just oh yeah, I had a problem with her for a long time because I didn't quite see her kind of what I call winking that this was a character. I thought that she was really trying to get one over on all of us, that this is who she was, when that didn't seem possible, for what we knew about like kind of like her backstory and everything, or authentic, even though her music was so illustrative and so authentic to its own very unique style. And I read it was, you know, a Rolling Stone article or something like that, where she's got a song that's called I Fuck My Way to the Top. And that was on, you know, one of her following albums, and she was talking about it and being asked about it, and she goes, oh yeah, I blew a lot of producers. They didn't do anything for me, but I wanted it so badly that I did. And that was like the first time I fully respected her for being so honest. And I honestly, to do that, I there was no scolding of her in my mind. It was just that, you know, now she was like laying it all out there that you know, she wanted bad enough, and that's what she was going to do.
Right, and she was honest that she was taken advantage of, and she was aware after the fact that she was taken advantage of, and she learned a lot about the industry.
If she did, there might have been a mix in there where she wanted to sleep with these. I'm not really sure, you know. You can call it whatever, but that is what she did and what she said.
I mean, I won't go too far into it.
Yeah, we can.
No, I mean, there's all look. I think we're aware that like the reason why there's a lot of actors who are closeted, is they were, you know, there was a lot of abuse going on, and it's just tough. So anyhow, should I ask why you stopped the show, or should I ask where you went after college? Did you go back to Pittsburgh?
It would be kind of a similar answer. Yeah, I quit the show because it was getting really redundant, and like I've kind of mentioned about like the whole like wanting to be free, untethered. I couldn't make it go on forever. You know, I was doing the same format every week. It was also very stressful because the show took up my entire weekend, a 3-day weekend even sometimes.
Right, and you had to come up with the guest and all that, like you were your producer.
I mean, I had to write the show. I had to do. I did everything from researching all the news, writing the show and the jokes and everything, filming, performing, doing my own makeup and hair, editing, and then uploading, and then marketing. You know, marketing it so that it could go further.
Was this the era that MTV had just become a reality show network instead of a music?
Because
like you, and I'm just going to assume your show kicked ass. Like it kind of pisses me off that like you weren't just plucked off of YouTube and put on MTV with this show. No, you know what I mean? Or a cable kind of show.
During that time, it was the height of the reality show era for MTV.
Yeah, so there was nothing about music on music television.
No. And to be honest, if you watch Rec Radio, you will be very disappointed. The quality was bullshit. It was.
I don't care about the quality. I just care if you're interesting and entertaining, and if you're talking about music in a way that interests me.
Yeah. It's really cute. I've gone back and I've done kind of like modern episodes of the show where I had my wits about me and more production know-how that I think are better. But at the time, it, like you said, it was quite a time capsule of such. And I mean, if I was plucked and put into something that was more professional, I probably would have only resented it for having, you know, rules put on me or doing stuff that I don't want to do. Like even as an actor, a commercial actor, it's been very tricky because like I don't promote things like alcohol. I'm pretty anti-alcohol. I don't do it myself, and I think it's destroyed so many lives. And I've had, you know, another performer who I think as very accomplished and very talented to say like, no, we're selling ourselves, like we're for sale. And that's never been me ever since I started Rec Radio, because people who would see me in an ad would go, that is Jess Paul, and she's saying that she is representing this brand. And ever since, starting YouTube, I don't even as a commercial actor, kind of separately from YouTube, I'm not going to promote something that I don't agree with. So it's Sherry's Berries Strawberries for me forever.
You have that integrity bone.
Yeah.
Like some people don't have an integrity bone.
Yeah.
But
and for a lot of people, they're going to go further. They're going to get the bigger bucks. They're going to be in the bigger commercials because, and I'm not meaning to put them down, because some of my closest friends are those people, and they are doing just fine. They're doing just fine, and they are happy with where they are. But that just was never my path.
Honestly, this is reminding me. I'll just talk about myself for a second.
Yeah,
you're reminding me of our emails leading up to the Sherman Oaks Film Festival.
Yeah.
When you said something, I remember an email from you that said something like, "You love how much, like the people involved and myself in Sherman Oaks, how much we care about the quality of the festival."
Oh my God!
And
I
like the
could
integrity
talk about
thing.
That for a couple minutes,
but I can tell you, when I talk to other festival runners, they tell me the shit they do, and I'm like, yeah, boy, if we had no integrity, we would make so much more money. Like you are a better capitalist because, we're putting the quality of the films first.
Yeah.
We're like quality first, integrity first.
The experience is like even a little more than some of my favorite film festivals that I travel to. Having the extended Q&A where you have interviewers sit down and talk about the films we just watched, I can't believe that's not a standard after I've seen it now, because why else would you go to a festival? You can see all these things on YouTube.
I don't understand. Yeah. In fact, I kind of assume that's how everyone else worked.
It is the very
And then
similar,
everyone tells me they don't.
You stand in front, you line
the firing squad.
Yeah, the firing squad. You ask them one very basic and superficial question that nobody wants to hear the answer to, and they all just, fire off a couple words. So when I'll watch a movie, and again, I love it. It's so weird how it's separate that I don't have the time or the attention span for a mainstream movie. I love going to festivals and watching a shorts block. I mean, that makes more sense because that's for my brain to kind of watch a 10-minute film is much more fun and exciting, and then go to something completely different stylistically in the next couple minutes. Is very fun to me. But then also to go to the bar, and I remember, just speaking of alcohol, I ordered a lemonade. They had a special Wicked lemonade that they were promoting at the theater, and it was on the menu, and I asked for it and was hoping they were going to put it in a drink and make it look like it was something alcoholic. I usually go to bars and I'll go, can you make me a water and put leaves in it to make it look alcoholic, just so I don't look like a dweeb. And so I ordered, and I'm like, yeah, give me this lemonade, give me a large. And they go back and they come back with the mega thing that you have in the theater,
the paper cup.
It's
like the Coke branded paper cup.
Oh my God, that's not what I asked for. So I ended up emptying my other water glass, and so
the same thing has happened to me at mixers where I ask for a Sprite and they give it to me in the paper cup. I'm like, no, I want it in a glass, so it looked like an adult. It make it look like I got a vodka soda.
Yeah, exactly.
Sprite could pass for vodka soda.
Yeah.
I'm with you on I see alcohol is generally negative, but I'll have a drink.
I don't I do have a drink every once in a while too, and I always regret it. But I don't shame anyone. I'm not here to do that kind of thing. I'm just saying that's my own personal stance. I just don't like it.
It is funny. Well, the only reason I brought the festival was that you were sharing your integrity on that, and that's why I realize our festival and the way we run it just resonated for you.
If you guys haven't been to the Sherman Oaks Film Festival, they do not cram 10 shorts into one block. They give you a nice, breathable, 4 to 5, depending on how long they are, and they or 3, even less than that sometimes, and they let the filmmakers talk about the process, which is what we come there for, to share our ideas, our excavating and restructuring of the indie filmmaking process, the filmmaking process in general. Every single director, producer I've ever talked to has approached their film in a different way or used some kind of separate trick. There are, of course, easier ways to do things than others, but it is such a fun learning experience to sit and talk with filmmakers in that way.
Well, like the great joy of cinema isn't just watching it, it's sharing it.
Yeah.
Right? And like you said, if you're gonna watch a block of 9 shorts and then line up 9 people in front of sometimes they just say, stand up if you were one of the directors, stand up, and then they wave, and then you're supposed to go find them in the lobby to ask a question afterwards. Like, but if you're just watching it, not discussing it, then why not watch it at home?
Yeah.
Like, the whole thing is for a community to discuss, I mention it almost every podcast, but it's like the campfire.
Yeah.
Human beings evolved, gathered around a campfire, sharing what we saw that day, or the hunt of the day, or whatever, the gathering, It's like we gathered and we're social creatures. Chester, who's in the pen over there, he's a social creature. Like in Europe, they don't allow you to buy 1 guinea pig. You have to buy 2 because they're so social. They don't want to be alone. But it's okay. He's happy enough.
Okay. All right.
we thought about getting him a brother when we learned that, because when we went and got him, like, he was alone anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, we're social creatures, and like, even, right, like the whole streaming binging shit thing, like, watching a show is one thing, but you need your friends to watch it too so you can talk about it.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah. And that's what the film, like, honestly, like, could be you, could be someone else. One of my hopes is that, like, I guess my pipe dream is that someday one of the Sherman Oaks Film Festival alumni will, like, get that 5-picture deal from a studio and go, you know what? I'm going to donate $100K a year.
Yeah.
And then what we can do is we can watch one film.
Yeah.
We can watch, or we'll do one block, and then we'll have 2 hours to discuss it.
Yeah.
Because seriously, I wouldn't, you know what I mean? Because those are long 10 to 15 minute Q&As at the film festival are, well, the reason for the pause in my voice is for no reason the lights just came on.
Yeah. Do you have, is your house haunted?
No, Alexa and Siri control that.
Oh.
But I don't think I said anything that
technology.
sounded like, I didn't say, well, I'll just do the opposite. Hey Siri, turn off kitchen light. There we go. We're back to normal.
Just at the scene, we are surrounded by beautiful picture windows with nice overcast sunlight coming in.
And cool. We got some cool art around us.
Oh, I love it. Oh, absolutely. Like, this place is crawling with creativity and inspiration.
We love the arts.
Yeah.
All right. So after college, did you go back to Pittsburgh?
I was in Pittsburgh. I mean, I honestly, like, this is the dichotomy of me. I talk about how independent I am, and then I stayed in my parents' house till I was 29 years old, to save up money to move to Los Angeles, because I knew that was something.
Right. So LA was the goal, and you were practical about it.
Yeah. I mean, I figured that there was really only one way to do it, if it was ever going to work at all. And what I did, the reason I even. Okay, we had Rec Radio. It was successful to that degree in YouTube history. And then I came home and realized that they were doing things like casting a bunch of extras or one-line actor, like, characters from Pittsburgh to be in these movies that would come there for our tax rebate, you know? And so we had particularly Batman the Dark Knight was filmed in Pittsburgh, a good chunk of it, including, like, on our famous football field with our Steelers and stuff. And so, like, I have lots of friends that have worked on some of those pivotal films at the time that we associate with. And I thought that, that would be my in, is, like, working in Pittsburgh on some of these films. And I firstly and more thoroughly found the indie scene that way, where I just started auditioning. I remember the first film that I auditioned for, I sent an email and, again, interrogated the director because it was a volunteer project at that time. It was me just, like, going to be doing this for free. But I was like, okay, I maybe will think of auditioning for this, but what are you doing with it? Are you taking it to the film festival? Are you, like, I was very interested to see how it was going to turn out. And this was the same project that was so ambitious that it never actually got finished. But it was a great introduction to what the world was. Great. It was a great filmmaker, great writer, and who we stayed friends for quite a few years and continued to work on projects together. But I learned very quickly, like, how it could all be a big waste of time. That's what I always call it. It's a big waste of time and resources when you can't finish a project, and that's why it's a miracle that out of all of the things that could go wrong in a film production, it is a miracle when it finishes. But I right away, as soon as I started auditioning, was being cast in these small time things, to the degree where my first kind of big claim to fame that I wrote on for honestly years till this day was this film called The Immaculate Reception. And it ended up going to Sundance, which is why it was so pivotal to my career. It gave me so much confidence. And it was also like the biggest thing that I ever auditioned for. When I went to the cattle call, there were, dozens of other girls my age. I had never seen so many actresses in one room. And to the degree where the character was supposed to be a 16-year-old. And at that point, I was like 23, or 22 or 23. So I was like, there's no reason I should get this role, and there's no way I'm going to. And then after a lot of months of deliberation and callbacks, I got it. And so I kind of, that was the major confidence that I took throughout my career until I started building other acknowledgments and awards. Finally meeting Ben Carlucci, who I worked with, I guess only just maybe 2 years or something like that into film acting. I did a lot in that time, but our first film together and with our friends was called A Funny Man. And it was such a well-written, well-paced, touching movie, just like Burying Baby. And to be honest, he says about Burying Baby that he was excited to do it because it felt so much like our older work when we did these smaller projects. And a little look under the hood of Burying Baby and kind of why I wrote it in the way that I did, besides, it's just like it takes a lot to make a bigger production. I went to Sundance, and the only film that I really remembered and still to this day have in my tabs on my computer to watch every once in a while was this film called Best, and it debuted in my own shorts block with Immaculate Reception. It was a 3 to 4 minute film. I say 3 minutes because the fourth minute was credits, and it was so quick. It was so minimal, but it was so the kind of twist that it did in just that short amount of time was so memorable. And it got into Sundance. So that's kind of why, again, I wrote it early like that. And it followed that function, that same kind of short but sweet and a twist, and make it impactful. And so for the rest of my career, I took the handlebars and started producing with my friends, and started
after the Sundance experience.
Yeah.
So Immaculate Reception was a short.
Mm-hmm. And I didn't produce that one.
Right. You were just cast in it. Yeah. But so that was a really cool way to be exposed to the festival circuit,
oh
right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I went because of course if you get into Sundance, you go. It was funny. I didn't expect the altitude and the altitude sickness. So I had like a terrible kind of cold / like head thing the whole time. But it was a really cool experience. To be honest, it doesn't even compare to the experience I had at something like Sherman Oaks or one of my other favorite festivals, Austin Revolution, because at Sundance I specifically printed out 50 cards, and I'm so frugal that I was like hand cutting them myself and everything. So I knew I had 50 business cards. And I only assumed that I'm going there to sell myself. But the filmmakers are really from all over the world, and they're only really trying to pitch their own thing. So I talked to at least 50 people, made friends, like lots of characters, and then never talked to any of them again. And that's just how it goes. That is not the case with a lot of these other festivals that are much more welcoming to the creative soul and open to, making sure that people have the chance to collaborate.
Yeah, I mean, at Sundance, you can click with someone in a lounge or something and then end up friends. But yeah, it's too, like, there's no mixer where you meet everybody.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's just too big.
It was also,
whereas these smaller festivals, right, like, get to kind of meet everybody. And
it also really did have to do with my demeanor, too. Like, I'm not going to shove it on every random person from all over the world that, like, didn't call me back or something. It was the way I was pitching. I was coming in with a pitch as if these people were going to help me. And I didn't get anything from that because you're not actually starting a relationship. And so it was only by accident that when I went to ARF the first year, Awesome Revolution in Texas, we had a film, me and Ben had a film that played the first night that we were there. So the rest of my stay in town, I only had the chance to fuck around and talk to people, I mean, I was already a social person, so and an interviewer, so it wasn't hard to just start these great conversations with no kind of ties to come see my movie, come watch my movie,
Right. You weren't doing that, which
no.
Lord knows. Well, that should be welcomed, but not everyone welcomes it, I guess.
I mean, I think when we talk about networking, that dreaded word of networking, I think it's really just the definition or the standard in which, people have had a problem with, because it's actually quite a long game, and I don't like saying that as if the whole reason to network is just to eventually get that gig, because the gig by itself also is probably not going to be a huge moneymaker. You're finding the people that jive with your sense of humor, your production style, your interests, to make a movie with that crew that is impossible not to make it one with. I mean, I did rec radio by myself, and I almost panicked every single week because it was too hard. It was too much work to do by myself. Let alone, like, it would have been much better if I had somebody singly running the camera or telling me if my hair was shit and I didn't have to do it all again, and stuff like that. So, finding the people that I found Ben at a festival. It was called Indie Oaks in Pittsburgh, PA, Oakmont, technically, in Pittsburgh. And we just saw each other's films and wanted to become friends right away because we saw the potential in each other. He was showing his thesis, and the first thing I said to him, I'm like, if you heard squealing in the back of the theater, that was me, because it was a short called Cole the Robot, and it was this little puppet who wanted to. He wasn't a puppet. He was a puppet, but he wasn't a puppet in the movie. He was a sentient being, and he wanted to be a YouTube musician. He wanted to be discovered on YouTube. He had his own little YouTube show, and he was making music. And you saw the life that he was living inside this house. And he was adorable and so relatable, relevant to the time period. And I was just so emotionally enthralled with that character building. And I wanted to work with him so bad, and we did, and we still are.
I mean, talk about a film that would be perfect for you.
Oh, my God, I know, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
This is a silly question, but, like, were you ever at a festival and a film was on and then someone came up and said, hey, I used to watch your YouTube channel?
I haven't had it at a film festival. Well, I mean, I actually have people that come to film festivals who know me from the show that are now...
Right, like they follow your social media and they're
But I would meet people at shows that would say that, like, I would be interviewing somebody and they'd which makes sense, that we're in the right place to be recognizing me if I was at a show interviewing a band. So not that they saw me interviewing the band, because we would go, like, in a different room, but like hey, you're Jess Paul. I also got it. My favorite time. Let me talk. This is one of my favorite stories. I was at a party. It was an ugly sweater party in Pittsburgh, and this girl walks into the room. She was the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. I'm bisexual, by the way. And she was the most beautiful girl I'd ever seen, the cutest girl I'd ever seen. She walked in with this Hufflepuff sweatshirt, and I was like, oh my gosh. I have to talk to her. And at that point, there was no like weed smoke. I'm a huge pothead for the most part. There was none of that at that point in Pittsburgh history. So I was a little tipsy at that point. And I was talking to Ben. I've done this to him so many times. I literally stopped talking to him to go, and he's just like, whatever, to go talk to a girl. And and so I go up to her and I extend my hand. And I go, hi, I'm Jess Paul. And she goes, Jess Paul from Rec Radio? And I'm like, what? And I look at Ben, I'm like, did you hear that? And yeah, to this day, we follow each other on social. She has no idea I talk about her like that, but I hope she never will. So
fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough. She'd be flattered anyway.
Well, I mean, if she swings that way, which I don't think she does.
So did you stop the show because you just had enough? It was you said you told me it was getting too redundant for you and you needed to move on.
I switched my sights to focusing on auditioning. Like to this day, it's really hard for me to juggle because I'm a visual artist and these are the feet, the multiple feet that I have in so many worlds, too many feet. I question all the time, like, is this the place for me? I love Los Angeles. I love California. With all of its social quirks, it makes so much sense for me to be here. It's only that I just kind of defy, like I have to go have a conversation with my agent who is SAG affiliated. And she's done pretty much nothing for me this past year. We've only been together 1 year, and one of those reasons she said was, she definitely won't be listening to this because she just pays attention to me none. But she said one of the reasons that it's been hard to submit you is because you're not SAG eligible yet, and that's where we want to get you. And I haven't told her that I don't want to be in the union. So we're going to have that conversation while I'm at ARF. And she's going to ask me, why didn't you book yourself out now that you're at a festival? I'm like, I have literally gotten 2 auditions for you in the last year. So, but again, not that I haven't been auditioning. I mean, I've been self-submitting myself for tons of, and getting some of those roles that she's just not thinking of. So I needed to shift my focus to it just didn't fit in my life. YouTube didn't fit in my life anymore. If I was going to try it all for both auditioning and that, which is kind of like the day job of an actor, and then to actually like getting the gigs. And it
sounds like it wasn't fun anymore. Because if it had been fun and financially rewarding.
Yeah, even if it was a little bit more financially rewarding, I would have maybe like kept at it a little bit longer.
Yeah, YouTube started chiseling away at people.
Yeah.
Right, like there was a little bit of money. Like I remember when I knew people making money on YouTube.
Yeah,
like they would intercut themselves into a video with Indiana Jones, put it on YouTube, and get 1 million views.
I don't know if they can get money from that because that's copyright. But
I think back in the day it was a little crazier.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
I had problems.
I knew a pair of filmmakers who, I don't know them anymore, so they're not listening. Like. Yeah, they were kind of hacks. Their own work sucked. But they could do a spoof where they intercut themselves with, a scene from Indiana Jones, and it'd be quite funny.
Okay. Yeah. Like I would make pocket change, what I called it. Like with YouTube or Google AdSense, you reach a threshold of $100 before you're paid out for anything. Like, so you could go like all year without reaching that $100. And I was getting $100 a month. It would just cross that threshold almost every month.
Yeah, so nothing. So just
I couldn't make a living off of that.
And no reason to stick with it. Yeah.
And I watch YouTubers to this day that will have multiple tens of thousands of subscribers and still struggle with that pay because that they do have their own apartment. They're an adult and like they made it their day job so they could focus on it. But it isn't. The one of my favorite YouTubers that I'm referencing, her name's Ostefco, if you want to watch her. She was a teacher, and the pay of YouTube is not meeting that threshold, that would be very sad. What we know about a teacher's salary. So it's not really viable unless you are to the degree of, something like Mr. Beast. And at that point, you're like creating a company and hiring people because you have to keep up with the demand and the production quality. So, I mean, that kind of is the scale of YouTube. But I wanted to get more into traditional filmmaking and try to accomplish that high school, elementary school dream of being an actor. Because, by the way, I started off saying I wanted to be a pop singer, so still loved music even back then. But when my first little play that I ever did was in like freaking Catholic school, and it was I went to a school called St. Valentine's, of the moment, and we did a little play called School for Cupids, and I again had no interest in really acting, but I thought, well, pop stars act and stuff sometimes, so I went and did it, and then just found so much joy in it. I said I started for attention, and I still to this day want your attention, but I really it's the most fulfilling selfish thing. And when I make my material these days, when I'm making films, it's definitely transferred over to wanting to connect with people, wanting to create this shared experience that honestly YouTube gave me. Weirdly, I'm trying to do it through film more than YouTube, but because I love the art, I love executing the art form of filmmaking. But when I would watch some YouTube videos of girls sitting, against the side of their bed and talking about an experience they had, outlined but off the cuff, and speaking candidly and pausing and trying not to cry when they get to certain parts, and realizing that the experiences were so similar to mine, that's when I found comfort and validation in my own person. The idea of looking at my body and being comfortable with what I look like came with just listening to dozens and hundreds of girls' stories about how they, were bullied by their own parents when they were younger, when they, never felt like they were beautiful because they weren't a runway model, as unhealthy as that can be. That's where I found the human experience, and I tried to my best ability to transfer that in filmmaking, in my film work. So it hopefully over the years has shifted from a very selfish endeavor to a more shared experience.
Cool. All right. Well, at what point did you move? Like I know you're in Pittsburgh, mm-hmm. and I know what did it take to finally head out to LA?
I was planning on moving since only a couple years after. Well, I was planning on moving honestly since I started to pursue acting again when I graduated college. And then I was racking up what I was considering my real material, which ended up being so much more significant than that, like the films I make to this day. Like some people say like, oh yeah, all the other stuff I made before I got to Hollywood doesn't matter. Oh no, that's my legacy. Like the stuff that's on my website is what I want to be known for the rest of my life. The stuff that I've made myself. I made so many posters too because I'm a graphic designer for the movies. Even the ones that I wasn't producing, I was like, you guys need a better poster, and I'm so proud to put those on my website. But I was gaining that experience, the real material, the credits. To be able to come here and obviously save up all the money. And the last thing that I did before I moved was a feature film with Ben called Galatea that, again, is another thing that I proudly put on my website and talk about because it was his debut film. Mine was the second one I produced as far as a feature goes, and we made something that was colorful and sweet, bittersweet, more so, and it was an experiment and an exploration for sure. And so once that was done, I knew that I was kind of ready because I played the lead. I played two of the leads actually. That was on purpose. That wasn't like for lack of resources or actors. But after that, I was like, okay, this is it. Let's go. And I got here in 2019, and I was here for about 7 to 9 months before the pandemic hit. This little pandemic that we like to forget happened. And then the SAG strikes happened. So, and then the fires, and so just been kind of, like everybody else in this city. I'm obviously not alone in this, but navigating, what Hollywood is at this point or what it's going to be. Again, questioning my own place in it, and then questioning what it's going to turn into in the years to come.
Yeah, I mean, it was a crazy 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
Lockdown and then strike. 2 strikes.
Yeah.
Multiple strikes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy.
Still found my work and my collaborations though, which I'm really proud of.
Yeah, I mean, well, the way you work, the strike wasn't too big an issue when you're making your own stuff.
Yeah. I mean, even then, like, there was still a lot of independent stuff being made, and I was doing that anyways. I wasn't on that side of it. So
it's just during COVID, it might have been a little.
COVID was when I really leaned into YouTube. One part of this story that I haven't touched on is that I did try to pick up YouTube again, with a show called This Is Jess Paul, with all my social. Well, actually, I named it after my social media that I had already had, and I wanted it to be more of a variety show, which is terrible for the YouTube algorithm. They want specifics, they want niches, they want to be able to put you in a box. So it really didn't pick up. And all of that anxiety of my whole weekend being taken up and getting, the video in at the time I'm usually supposed to post, it got too much again. And I had to say, this was fun, but I honestly can't do this one either. And I ended up diving into live streaming, which is much less on the production side and more on the improvisational performance side. So I got to kind of stretch those muscles, and to this day, like on Monday, I'm literally going to have a streaming marathon. And what I do on there are my crafts. It's fun. It's talk about creating a narrative in the moment. I'll take on a craft. Again, DIYer here, biggest DIYer you could imagine. So I'll take on a craft I might not have ever even experimented with, and often even when I am doing something, when any artist is doing something, a process of painting something, there's a lot of ugliness in the middle. Like sometimes it looks awful, but also with these crafts that I haven't done before, I don't know if it's going to pan out because I'm not sure if I know what I'm doing. So there's conflict, there's suspense, and by the end of the stream, we'll see if we have something or not, and I can interact with everybody. So that was a great lesson in that. And so my main craft is that, again, so much to touch on. I make fake food. I make fake prop food, which came into, I gave you a little gift that was kind of along those lines. And I literally am possibly going to get hired for like a gig where Netflix is going to need like, I don't know, 15 of my ice cream cones or something like that. So I do little things like that every once in a while, but mostly I sell to moms with kids that are dressing up for Halloween and need to have like a donut on their head or on their costume or something like that. And that's my bread and butter, my fake bread and butter.
That's your fake, and is it kind of an Etsy thing, or?
It's Etsy, yeah.
That's so cool.
So people can even type in like, I need a fake donut, and they'll find it.
I mean, what I call the office, the home office, is actually referred to as the craft room in this house. Yeah, it's very, very crafty. And no, it's my wife and the kid. Yeah. No, I'm the handy one. I build shit. Well, I love including the kid on that. Yeah. By the way, 17. I don't know if I should say kid anymore, but I taught her how to use a circular saw. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like letting her use the saw at 12, and then I'd have to recut it because it would be the wrong length. But it's okay. But anyway, so I do the big projects, whereas
nice.
But that's very cool. So Etsy, so that's so indie.
It's still very indie to the degree where, I've gotten my food into really cool places, and when people hear about it, they're like, how can you make this bigger? How can you franchise this? I'm like, no. If it gets any bigger, That means I have to hire people. That means that it's not going to be fun anymore. That means that I have responsibilities, that I have to, like, I really, like, it's so natural for people either in our age or in our country to always be moving up to the next step. But this specific craft has really taught me, this is it. This is as far as we're going, and I love it here. It's been really tough too because of how much I do or how much time I like to spend on my different projects. I am constantly triaging my, what I can do at any one point. Like, I had to get rid of YouTube, and there was a point where I'm like, do I have to stop my store? Because if I want to lean more into filmmaking, like, filmmaking can be somebody's entire life and weekend and nights. Like, it can be all of that. But I divide my time. I'm that person that the book The Master calls the dabbler. I do a lot of, and it was supposed to be a dirty word, but it's all I've ever known. I think it's baked into my personality that I'll just be constantly trying new art forms. Some I'll be better at and will spend more time on and be more of an expert at after a decade. And then some I'll just have rudimentary knowledge of, but that's how I like it, and that's where I like to be.
Well, I mean, with the Etsy store, you don't need to be bigger. You just, hopefully, if your cachet grows, you can just charge more for the same work.
Yeah, or people buy from that cachet. A lot of people love to get custom work from me, and that's another chunk of time that gets taken out of my weekly schedule that I don't expect to be taken up. So
right.
Yeah.
I just mean you'll be able to charge a premium for that.
Yeah.
Start charging.
Yeah, sure.
Have boutique type level.
I mean, it is a pretty specialty craft.
I would think so.
That many other places, and from what I've seen on the site as well, I don't even have to touch these things or buy them. I can see what they're made out of, and a lot of people make them out of clay or something. Mine, I learned how prop makers make their things by molding either a piece of real food or their own sculpture. For example, I have a real donut that I've molded in silicone, and I have a fake donut that I sculpted to be perfectly round and even and stuff. And so I have a mix of that in my bakery, as you call it. And I learned how to do that so that I could make pillow soft, flexible, spongy pieces of food that you can wear on your head or put on a costume. In fact, at Disney yesterday, me and my bestie, she had 2 stacks of pancakes as ears, bacon and egg bow, and then I had 2 croissants with ham and cheese and egg as the bow, and it was adorable. Even they ended up being a little too heavy because of all of the accoutrements we were putting on them. But I just gotta kind of trim it down and fix it a little bit, and then I'll be able to sell those and then market them with our little videos, hopefully.
I mean, you should have a table at the next gala.
Hey, if you're offering,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because what can I say? I guess I am offering. Why not? Make it cool. I mean, we had a VR section.
Yeah.
Why
That's
not?
true. That was so amazing.
Oh, you got up there?
Oh yeah, I watched them both. I don't know how many were up there, but I watched both a music video and a short film.
Yeah, there should have been 3. Oh, animated film. So you didn't see the one with the baby in the back seat?
No.
Yeah, it was you were sitting in the back in a baby seat in the back seat, and your parents were in front of you, and it was stuck on the freeway trying to get out of town during a zombie apocalypse.
Oh my god.
So it actually was a horror movie. And you would turn this way and see zombies out the window.
Oh,
it was
man, I missed
very
that.
cool.
That's so cool. That's very cool.
It is very cool.
What an experience. You can't get that anywhere else unless you have a VR headset, I guess.
Yeah. We set that up in the theater lobby the first time, and it was too hurried. So the gentleman who runs that for me, who made that one, his name Andy. Thank you, Andy Cochran. He's he'd rather just set up at the gala, and we'll just present VR films at the gala.
Yeah.
Because, man, it's such a cool medium.
Yes, it is. In fact, I really didn't understand what I was looking at because when I got up there, for one, I didn't know what I guess I don't pay attention or read anything. But I was like, oh, what is this? And they explained it to me as if it was a movie that I could just watch in a headset. And I'm like, I'd rather like be talking to people. And they're like, okay, fair enough. And then finally I came back. I'm like, okay, I don't think I understand what this is. And so they finally sat me down and watched it, and I was blown away. I was so enthralled and excited to be witnessing that medium.
Yeah,
that was amazing.
Yeah, it's funny. I keep saying VR, but I think the right term I'm supposed to use is immersive cinema.
Oh, okay.
It's immersive, right? Because you're just immersed in it, and
that you have the
cool.
capacity to turn your head and see the room around you, and it changes. You know, you could switch your focus on different things. Amazing. I was so enthralled.
So collaborator Ben Carlucci,
Mm-hmm.
Did he move out the same time as you?
No, he's not here.
Oh, he's not here.
No, I went back to Pittsburgh to film.
Oh, you filmed Bearing Baby back there with. Mm-hmm. So he's back there.
Yeah, he's another very inspiring individual. When I say individual, like with a capital I, like he has his very unique vision and path that I've just always been. It's just always been so commendable and inspiring to me. Along the lines, like we liked a lot of the same visuals and themes, but and it overlaps sometimes. But then, you know, as he's maturing as an artist, I get to be a fan of his as well. So in the same weekend that we filmed Burying Baby, we filmed one other short and then another test scene for his future feature that's coming out. I won't give too much away. We haven't started production, but it's so him, and it's going to be, in my opinion, very revolutionary in the niche that he's in, which is religion, modern religion, and it's what else can I say about Ben? So we started collaborating 8 years ago, and with Burying Baby, I mean, for one thing, he's so efficient when it comes to these kinds of things. We planned that was a 4-day weekend, and we filmed 2 shorts and a test scene. And with Burying Baby, it was one of the most beautifully cinematic and kind of close-up capturing of emotions that I think we'd done yet. Funny Man was a very similar style in that way, where the focus of the film was the 2 faces that you were seeing. So it's very beautiful to kind of see those juxtapositions. But I was really grateful to have his guidance on this film. It was one of those things where I said earlier, it's either, you know, a writer is either going to be sorely or pleasantly surprised. I was more than pleasantly surprised when I saw what this film ended up looking like. And not only that, I mean, I talk as if he was only cinematographer. He rewrote it. He rewrote my script. And it was funny because I read the script before I sent it to him before we made the film. And then I go, you know, change whatever you want, even change the title. Like I Burying Baby was the original title. We didn't think of a better one. But I said, you know, make it your vision. Because I have never handed my script over before, and I thought that would be a really good exercise for me. And so he handed the script back, and I'm like, did you change anything? Like, this looks like my script. And then I read it back after we filmed it, after like saying the lines over and over again. Oh my God. He trimmed so much fat that I didn't even remember was there, because the thing that he put in front of us was so minimally perfect. It was so minimalist, and really captured those awkward, silent moments when you don't know what to say.
And that's why it was so familiar to you, because it was the essence of your script anyway. Yeah. So you read it and you're like, did you change? No, all he did was get rid of the little bit, you know.
It was a lot of it too. Like the other actor, Mr. Caldwell, I was so glad to have him too, Curtis. He had a whole monologue that wasn't there anymore. He said a little bit of it, but originally there was a monologue that was so chunky, really redundant, spelling out the theme, you know, that I wrote, I'm saying, and it was so unnecessary. I think people would really connect with the familiarity of the moment in this film, and it was a moment, you know, it was a scene, it was a short scene, very, very little was said, and just a lot was felt. I'll say without kind of like talking about specifics that I experienced a lot about this. I experienced the themes of this movie pretty intimately. Or at least I'll say people in my life, people close to me in my life have experienced the themes of this movie, and I was part of those moments with them. And so I had a lot of respect for trying to find that place, even though I'm constantly trying to become better at being more authentic and in the moment as an actor. Because like I said, I didn't go through that training where they beat you down and strip you down and make you learn what it is to be authentic. For a lot of my career, I felt like I was really pulling the faces that I've seen people make when they're sad and just doing, I guess, a better job because I kept getting the roles in the awards. But I in coming to Los Angeles, I realized how, just like going into high school, just how little I knew or thought I knew because I hadn't really failed in the past. And so this was a big redemption for me that I don't even really believe is 100% to where I want to be as an actor one day.
Yeah, so you didn't pursue an acting class or anything in Pittsburgh. You didn't study acting as much as you just did it.
Yeah, I mean, off the bat, like I got
because I mean, just like you did with YouTube, you just did it.
I just DIY'd it,
and you move out here. By the way, I'm curious, bearing baby. So after you moved out here, like, how many shorts have there been? Like, I assume, right, you came out, COVID hit, strikes hit. But, like, have there been a bunch of scripts? Have there been a bunch of shorts?
So we did those two. That was after the pandemic. The work that I did around the pandemic, because there really wasn't much. I couldn't do anything during the pandemic. I mean, you could do, like, little Zoom movies or stuff in your house. I didn't
people made the Zoom movies.
I
saw a good one.
Yeah, did you?
I saw about 50 Zoom movies, and one was good.
Oh, okay. You want to shout that one out? Do you remember what it was called?
Exit. It was actually made by this really well-established filmmaker.
So it was a feature?
No, it was short.
Oh, it was short, okay.
It was short. It was someone getting fired, I think, on Zoom.
Okay. Oh, fun.
Yeah.
That's neat. That's probably relatable. So I didn't make anything during the pandemic. I started commercial campaigns after I came out of the pandemic, and there's probably one I forget, like a couple, and I did a feature after the pandemic as well, here in Los Angeles, got cast just traditionally. I also, something that I talked about during my Q&A after bearing baby, one of the big parts of the redemption of this movie and doing this was that I did get cast in another feature outside the one the one that I made that is very fun and cool that I'm excited to come out is called Abstraction. But there was another film that I got cast for. I was going to be the title character, and I was working really closely with this director. She cast me, and she wanted not only, like, I went through like 4 rounds of auditions, and she cast me, and we talked so closely. I was basically, like, starting to produce this thing with her. She was even, like, kind of writing some of my personality traits and some of my resources into the movie's character because, like, I'm an artist, so she, we were going to use all my art for this character, and we ended up filming 2 weeks of this movie on location. It was this big, beautiful film, but things were falling apart to the degree where we didn't even have the script completely written when we went there. Like, I had a third of the script, and what ended up happening as things were falling apart, and an actor, like, shaved his beard, so we couldn't have him anymore. And she said to me eventually, I kind of have the opportunity to rethink all of the aspects of the film. So Jess, I don't know if you're going to be right for this anymore. I like to hear that kind of thing. Like, I knew that when I was going to come to Los Angeles, that I would experience being rejected from hundreds of auditions. That's just what you expect. And you condition yourself to be like, that's how it is. And, like, there's all different reasons and it's no big deal. And I really have embraced that idea. But, like, when it came to, like, doing something, like, producing something and acting in something to being fired from it was like, when I say soul crushing, I mean all of this jokingly narcissistic confidence that I've had for years was absolutely pummeled into the ground. People talk about rock bottom as like deaths and stuff, but I've never, experienced my parents dying yet, or people that close to me, to that degree. So this was like the worst I'd ever felt about anything. It was the thing that made me question everything I'd ever done and would do, and what I was worth, and how talented I really was, and is everyone lying to me? And oh my God, the what do you call it? I always forget this term. When you think that you are, when you think that you're, what is it? Let me think about this.
I would help, but you haven't started.
No, I know. It's when you believe that you are something, and then everybody, and you think that it's such a common term. Everybody uses it all the time.
Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. Yeah, I always forget it. It always blanks out of my mind. Imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome.
We've all got it. I mean, I think that means healthy. I think imposter syndrome.
I think everybody has
is health. Everyone
despite
has
me forgetting the word all the time. I think that like everybody has doubts about their own abilities, because we know that our peers around us only see the surface, and don't know what our fears or shortcomings really are until they're faced with them. And then I felt like I was really faced with one. So I was over the next couple of years, I didn't stop auditioning. In fact, I did that other feature, Abstraction, while I was kind of going through this internally. I had a breakdown, like a panic attack in the green room of that movie, and nobody knew, just because I was like, they have no idea. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not so a lot of people really consoled me of this terrible thing that happened to me, but honestly, it was more in the taking my own responsibility. Like the director was in the production was flawed in all different kinds of ways. Like if I describe what happened on the set, it's no wonder that it never got made, and she fired everybody, which she did. It never got made, and she fired everybody. But at that same instance, I really, for the first time, questioned, well, I never did have acting education, and nobody really comes up and tells you, you could have done a lot better in that scene. Like, nobody says that. They just don't hire you for the next thing. And then when you're not getting the roles, that's only par for the course. I have gotten roles, and I feel like I bring my own thing to the table. But at the same time, could I be doing better? Could I be doing as well as my peer next to me, who is climbing the ladder steadily, and that doesn't go away. So this movie was part of my redemption in that regard, that I was hoping that I could pull off something that was authentic. And I think I did that to the closest degree that I ever, even though I'm probably still searching for that performance that I hope is good enough, and I probably never will, because nobody ever thinks that they're quite good enough. So yeah. I don't mean to be negative. I hope this comes across as positive, but I believe I think Anthony Hopkins a few years ago said something along the lines of, I don't think I'm good at this. And I think I might have wasted my life. You know what? But he hasn't. Taika Waititi is very public with his imposter syndrome, and it's like, I can't help but think that the people who are like, oh, I've got it down, like they're either wrong, they're either delusional.
They're either delusional, or they're just complete assholes. Yeah, and they might be good at what they do, but they're people you want to dodge. Yeah.
I think it comes down to you don't know what you don't know, and that's a effervescent cliche, but that's been my experience. That anymore, one of my people ask like, "Oh, what's your biggest fear? Is it heights? Is it spiders? Is it ghosts?" And mine is my own ignorance. Because sometimes I in my early 20s or my mid 20s, I was the most confident I ever was because I thought I'd learned a lot, but didn't know quite how much I had to learn.
This is the silliest analogy, but like I used to walk on the roof no problem of this house.
Okay.
In my 40s, but for some reason, the older you get, you actually get a little more fear because you've just seen too much.
Yeah, sure.
And you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like it is funny how we have more confidence when we're ignorant.
Yeah.
And then we learn too much and we realize, but we can still be confident, but we say to ourselves, hey, look, I guess I'm trying to spin it positive by saying that you do reach a point of maturity where you say, failure is fine as long as you're going for it.
Yeah.
Like,
failure's part of it.
You know what I mean? Like I have a real hard time with it because, whatever, I have all the issues, but like, it's fine to fail. It's fine to fuck up.
Well, I mean,
you know what I mean?
We say that about each other, but when it's ourselves, we're not allowed. We, like everybody else, is going to judge us for it, and we don't want to be the one that looks like the weak one in the herd that's going to be eaten or trampled on. Just like we were talking earlier about, the ancient people, trying to survive and it translating to this day and age of us having anxiety over if we're going to wake up for the plane in the morning when we have to catch it at LAX.
Yeah. So, I don't know where are we at? Where are we at?
I mean, yeah, the story is long and varied, but that's a big chunk of it.
So now, what is your focus really more on producing more films or?
No, I only ever produced so that I could get something made, something finished that I was in. And I will continue to do that. I've had other actors friends that, they did the same exact thing as I did, where they took on producing roles to do to make sure that everything was good and actually finished. And then people started asking them to just be producers. And I don't have an interest in that because my journey has always, in this context, has always been about performing. If I want to, do my other visual art, then I'll just go make some fake food. But as far as the filmmaking journey, it has always been about acting. Even I was a writer before I was an actor. Even like the same time I was developing Rec Radio and starting to put that on the air, I wrote my first script at 19 years old called Jesse's Girl. It's a kind of like an American Pie reboot of if the protagonists were lesbians, So I think it'd be super fun, and I've had the script for years. It's so funny too how it's changed over time just of rewriting it. But yeah,
that would be fucking rad.
Yeah,
I would want to see that movie.
Yeah. That's all it ever came down to. I wrote an expensive movie that had lots of like known music in it, and that would be time period. I said it back in the 90s to solidify it in like 99 to solidify it in that look and that feel, and also as the years kept going, things kept changing about the world. So if I updated it today, like in the 90s, it would have been an impactful film for what it was. Now it's just it's a film that has gay people in it, which is great.
Which really is
amazing. Like I am so happy but I wasn't part of that. Like I kind of missed the boat of making that happen. So now it's going to be more of a nostalgic movie. Was
not your responsibility to make it happen, but
it wasn't.
Thankfully,
it was fun to watch. Yeah.
But as great as society has changed, we are aware that. There's still people stuck in the mud, but yeah, that would be. I understand why you want it to be a period piece because
I had to do that with most of my movies that I've written over the years because I often, I mean, it's to my detriment. I will try to capture a moment in time, an era, or a type of humor, or something like that, and then eventually it starts to age out. So if you kind of encapsulate it in a time period, it won't be dated. It will be nostalgic.
Yeah, well, and as far as society's judgment of underrepresented groups, if that's like the lamest statement possible, but yeah, I mean, if you're going to have a film about human sexuality, you kind of do have to set it in a time period because it's ever evolving.
Yeah. Yes, and if you want to capture that impact, because in the movie, it always had been that, like, the girl's relationship is it's a little talked about. Like, it's at least, I mean, it's a kind of a fun-loving movie, but, there is controversy among them. They're not, like, out, so that's part of it a little bit. And
I mean, 30 years ago.
Wow, 30 years ago.
I mean, I have lived during an interesting time, born in the late 60s. Mm-hmm. I have 3 friends who grew up, went to college, got married, had kids, and then right in the early 40s got divorced and came out.
Wow.
And then, like, my daughter's friends were, like, out in middle school.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, my God, this generation won't have to try super hard to live the lie for half of their life.
Big sigh.
You know what I mean? It's so different.
Sigh.
And by the way, we have really close friends who are a gay couple, and they both are like, one of them, the one's in her late 60s and one's in her early 70s. Early 70s still can't say I'm a lesbian. Mm-hmm. She's like, I just don't say it. It's just I'm not gonna modernize. She spent her whole life holding it back. That even her wife is like, yeah, she won't say it. I say she. By the way, it's funny. I think she compensates by saying, like, she constantly tells everyone she's gay, which is great because her wife is like, well, my wife might be gay, but I'm not. You know what I mean? It's just kind of a funny thing. Like, she's like, I just don't see myself that way.
I'd love to ask her questions. Like, is it the terminology? Is it maybe that she falls under a different sexuality that lesbian doesn't quite capture it? But I'm curious what she means.
Yeah. Needless to say, I didn't totally start interviewing her over dinner. But I just thought but I've seen what's happened to people my generation. Yeah. That's the generation before me, and I just think it's wonderful. Thank God that things are different now.
I've said over and over, to be honest, like, I was born, there are lots of people that wanted to be born in the 70s, like they wanted to be born at a different time. Oh my God, it would have never made sense for my personality to be born any earlier. Like, if I would have had to been a housewife or closeted, or with all the personality traits that I have and all the things that I reap the benefits of, including the unionization of actors, I would have been in real trouble, including the Me Too movement. It happened. The Me Too movement it took root around 2017, 2018, and I came here in 2019. After that little experience I had when I was with that
the job fair.
Because I remember knowing what the casting couch was back, or like having a vague idea, but I didn't know it was real. I watched Imitation of Life when I was little and thought, like, oh, that's back in the 60s. That happens in the 60s, or that used to happen. I didn't think that was still going on. I didn't think that could possibly be legal, or just no one would say anything. But that culture of quiet was spread so far.
It's a tough subject for me because I feel like Me Too did some really wonderful stuff early on, and then everyone pretended, okay, that fixed it. Oh. And it's not, right? And it's not even close to fixed. I still hear horror stories,
do you?
Well,
see, I like to also say myself, like, when people hear that story, I like to also say I've never actually experienced. I've been so lucky to not experience any, like, firsthand abuse like that. It's a fear that I've always had, but I feel so fortunate to either be born in the right time or just to have the right string of experiences where, I mean, I have like little offhand stories. Like this one time, I laugh about it. This one time back in Pittsburgh, I was cast off of my reel for a short that involved a lot of fight choreography. I'm not very athletic. I will try anything anyone wants me to, but I was cast without them, knowing what I could do, which is not a lot. Even though I was like trying to get this choreography down. And at the same time, I was, getting close to this director. He like invited me to his house for food and everything, for dinner with other filmmakers. And I met his wife. And over we were talking and everything, I learned that she was bisexual and they were kind of open. And at the time, I was like, the response I said to that we were texting, I said, that's great. Like, I myself wouldn't be, like, I myself don't practice, my relationship's been that way, but that's so commendable of you guys to be so open about that, which basically, like, kind of shut that down. And so I went to go practice this fight choreography. It was a little iffy. To the degree where I was so afraid to like hit this actual stunt choreographer that he had me like punch him in the stomach multiple times, and then I started to cry, whatever. And so I then at some point get this text, this mass text. I was at the Cheesecake Factory with my family, and I come out and I turn my phone on, and I get all these texts. These other friends that were actors with me in this film, they go, because again, this was another director that like cast me in, like that director that fired me. She like they cast me in multiple things. Like they really believed in my talent. And then I get this text that both, like a text from my friends that are in the film that go, oh my God, what happened? Why aren't you in the film anymore? What happened? Like, why did you quit or whatever? And then I see this other mass text from the director that says, Jess will not be part of this production anymore. And to this day, I don't know why. I don't know if it had to do with how bad I was at the fight choreography or how I didn't want to sleep with his wife. I don't know. It could have been a little bit of both. But, I didn't feel as bad about that one because I never claimed to be good at martial arts. I have nothing to do with martial arts, and he never asked. So... even if I did want to sleep with his wife, I'm not sleeping with a director's wife. That is such a mess. That does not make any sense. Like, that's going to ruin all of that's just bad business practice, let alone being kind of illegal. I mean, it's not illegal. I'm sure everyone can do it with their wife. No,
not to be crass, but don't shit where you eat.
No, yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like keep things separate.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It almost sounds like if that was his reaction, they were hoping he would be the special guest or whatever. Right. They were looking for a unicorn.
Yeah.
Hey, she might be a unicorn.
Right.
I listen to Dan Savage's podcast, so
I listen to Dan Savage sometimes too.
Yeah, less often now, but
because
people's questions are too. He's still doing it, but
he is? Okay.
But everyone's questions are like the same. So it's like
okay.
I get it. I've got your answers. I appreciate you. I've learned a lot from you.
Dan Savage is also only one opinion in the community, like
very much.
Yeah, he's and I would say he's pretty. Well, from what I've heard, he's funny to listen to, and he's also pretty. Well, I mean, what I've learned about just being in the queer community at any length is that everybody has their own rules and everybody has their own preferences. There are some things that are cliches in the gay community for a reason, but then there are people that have very similar values to heterosexual heteronormative couples. It is why I keep saying, we're all individuals, and I know it's so much harder to not put people in boxes, but it's the only real way to get to know somebody without being prejudiced.
It is, and obviously, look, Dan Savage is an older gentleman, older person, so we are all of our time. We do our best to try to stay current and adapt to things, but yeah, he might be antiquated. I don't know.
That's so funny because I used to listen to him when he was kind of a young voice. I probably haven't listened to. I didn't even know he was making stuff. I listened to him 10 years ago or something.
Yeah. When he was, well, anyhow, did you get to go to that panel we had at Sherman Oaks Film Festival on the last day, Sunday, the queer filmmaking tomorrow?
I didn't because it was running in tandem, I think, with, right? With
It was
the
it was
panel.
up against the distributor
And
one.
I did go to the distributor one.
Distributor one,
Yeah.
excellent, which was a good choice. But,
Yeah. Well, yeah.
but I just actually the funny thing is I just got to watch the queer filmmaking panel this week.
Oh, I can watch it.
Not yet,
No, not
because
yet? Oh,
someone
okay.
on the panel
Oh.
said something that they wanted edited.
Oh, okay.
And it was taking them forever to watch it. And I finally found the
If
clip
only
they needed edited.
If I could do that, oh my gosh. Ugh. All the things that I've said out of my ass. Probably
And
like
it
5
wasn't
things
that
in this
bad. It was such a
podcast.
little comment. But anyway, I got rid of the comment, and now I think we're going to be able to. I think we're going to be able to release. It'll be part of with
Nice.
all the.
Oh, I can get
it'll
to see it.
finally be on. But everyone should because there were queer people, there were bi people, there were trans people on that panel, and it was one of the more refreshing things was a woman was like, oh, some of the cruelest things that have ever been said to me were said to me by other queer people.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've been worse to me than some straight people, and it was kind of I don't know, it was nice to see the spectrum and to realize it's a spectrum to I was glad, thank you, Dan Talbot, for putting together that panel and having such a nice spectrum so that it really represented just how dynamic the queer community is, and that it's honestly probably an antiquated term too, but we don't, it'd be nice to include everyone, right? Like everyone's on a damn spectrum.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you just are.
I mean, I am. I mean, it's a hope. I know that people love their identity, but it's going to come to a place where we won't be able to identify somebody's race or very easily put somebody, like give somebody a label sexually because there's just too many or it's just too mixed, and I know that a lot of people love their identity of their own group, their own in-group. And again, it might be controversial to say, but I think it would be a better world if we can't even identify each other by the obvious markers that are on.
Right, like if you, exactly. If everyone had on a blindfold, we'd be better off.
Yeah, it means you have to talk to a whole lot more people, like have a lot more discussions, maybe listen to a lot more of these podcasts to be able to really understand the wide range of identities and personalities. But that is just what our world is made up of very, very unique souls.
Extremely. And yeah, I understand that this is an interesting time because we're talking a few weeks after a new administration stepped in and it feels like there's people who their point seems to be to turn back the clock.
Right.
But they don't even know what the fucking clock is. And, if you get all these people together in a room, they'll disagree. Mm-hmm. Like, all these, well, I'm not a religious person, but I know for a fact that, like, no one agrees on that either. Like, no, you are not Christian enough for me. You are too Christian for me. Like, it happens nonstop. And you might be straight, but I don't even look at another one. Oh, well, we'll you know what I mean? Like, it's just, they're just wasting their time and they're attacking people for no reason.
Yeah. Like, just to even touch upon, like, that religious point, Ben has been one of the people that has opened my eyes to the spectrum of Christianity that is out there and the different kind of what you would assume are, like, overlapping or opposing viewpoints that can be in one individual. But to take the book and to just use it for its good versus its bad principles is a choice. It's a choice.
Oh, boy.
To quote a drag queen, it's a choice. It was a choice. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, anything else any topic we didn't cover? I think I kind of got your life story now of sorts. My goal was to, right? I just let you know.
For sure.
You got, I know how you got into it and you're continuing with this. And so your main focus is acting.
Yeah.
And you have, I got to, you know what, I'll wrap it up by just saying I really respect, among the things I respect everything about you.
Thanks, Jeff.
But what you said about, like, you're aware that, like, the auditioning process is about rejection. When I hear that, like, I think, like, that's so healthy because.
I mean, I'm definitely not unique in that.
And you've casted roles too,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
So
that was helpful.
you are aware that, like, you can think someone's great, but they're not right for this.
I would say that I do want to say that most actors have to adopt that stance to continue to audition. So I'm not going to claim myself to be so unique about that, but I mean, I just have embraced that a long time ago, and definitely casting my own films has made that all the much more, like, you can only pick one person for a role, you know? So it comes down to some of the smallest reasons. I mean, it could be something as different from, you know, delivering a scene slightly differently to scheduling conflicts, you know, anything. And that's just.
And it is arbitrary because we're human beings. And everything in life is arbitrary. At some point, like, it just becomes arbitrary. Like, they had to pick somebody.
Yeah. Right.
Somebody got picked, you know? People send us angry emails when we send out our official selections.
I've heard of that even from the Austin Revolution.
Film. People are like, how come you didn't, you know, why didn't my film get in?
That's so weird.
And it's like, you know.
I mean, I guess people could, I mean, if they want notes, if they want, like, you know, to improve, but it usually seems kind of defensive. And
yeah. Well, my defensive response is always, we have to pick films, and would you like a pass? We'll give you a free pass. Come watch as many films as you can, and you tell us if you think you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't. My implication is you'll see that we have really high quality films, and yours was not.
Yeah, I get that.
Because normally, like, they're not. But sometimes they are, you know, ones that were close, and I'm like, look, it's just competitive. It's competitive, you know. I wish we had the funds to show 100 films instead of 60, but we show 60.
Like, if I can peek behind the curtain, do you have a staff of people that like help to pick the films or vote on the
We
films?
have a jury. Yeah, we have a jury of
a jury, yeah.
Depending on the category, it'll be watched by 4, 5, 6, 7 people.
And
everyone rates it 1 to 10.
Kind of like casting, which that's more democratic than usually a casting room. But I mean, it does come down to people's tastes and opinions. I mean, even with that, to that degree, if they really relate to a certain film, and that just can't be helped, and that's not a problem. That's only that is only speaking to what that particular festival wanted to fulfill.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, needless to say, as the festival runner, whatever, peeking behind the curtain, the jury, everyone rates it.
Yeah.
And then I export all those ratings and sort them.
Yeah.
And then my taste becomes the most important. When you get down to it, if we have 82 films that averaged a 9.2 or better with the juries, I'd be like, well, so, you know, I think that 9.1 is better than that 9.3, and then I make some adjustments on the edges, you know, but that's all there is to it.
I mean, I really respect that, and I feel very, very fortunate and you know, very honored to be part of that group of films. But even saying that, I was rejected. I mean, Bearing Baby was rejected from a couple other film festivals before, you know, I got the yes from you. And so I had to sit with that. It's like, I mean, I didn't email any of them, but that's that. I am certain that it came down to, you know, people's taste and their preferences and what they got from it. Yeah.
And I will never understand. Well, I do know for a fact that other, well,
I mean, it got awards at other festivals too.
Like, I was going to say, like, odds are, I don't know, most festivals. My impression from talking to people like yourself is a lot of other festivals, their focus isn't really the quality of the film; it's how many people they think will get in the seats.
I accidentally submitted Bearing Baby to a festival that I knew that was not necessarily an honorable one. And I won't say the name, I guess, but if you're on Film Freeway and you see a film festival like this, it actually had you pay money for each category submission of an award. So I submitted it for the main category, and then they sent me an email back to say, hey, your movie actually qualifies for this award and this award. So go submit it 2 more separate times at the same $60 submission rate, 2 more submissions. I was like, I want to take back the original one. This is awful. Oh my God, what a scam.
Some people wonder if we're like that, and they're like, "Do I have to?" I'm like, they're like, "What awards are we eligible for?" I'm like, all of them. We just divide things by length and genre, right? So there's short, featurette, and feature, and there's like 7, 8 categories. Yeah. I can normally name them: animation, art house, comedy, drama, horror, sci-fi, thriller. Dope. Did I say anime? Yeah, I think those 7. Oh, and then I threw in dance because I fucking love a dance film. Yeah. And but that's only in the shorts area. Okay. But because no one makes one. Yeah,
it's very obvious.
By the way, sometimes I'll realize, oh man, 25 minutes is too long for a dance film. I can't hang in it, even as much as I love watching human beings dance, because I am the least graceful person on a dance floor.
Oh, I might beat you there. I
you'll
like
beat
dancing.
me.
I like
You'll
dancing to my own beat, not like choreographed. That's where it gets fun.
I'm a juror for a dance film festival in the UK. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Well, the festival runner of that had a film at Sherman Oaks in 2020 and got inspired to start a festival in
you inspired somebody to start a whole festival?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
I don't know if Jenny listens, but hi, Jenny Pill. But the cool thing is, well, anyway, she invited me to be a juror, but she just gives me like 10 films to watch, and I get to choose who wins the award in that category. Yeah. And they're so gorgeous, these films. But, so I told her that I'm only graceful on the tennis court. And she goes, oh, maybe I'll choreograph a piece that includes tennis so you can dance. And I'm like, I promise you I will not be graceful if you put me aside. Anyway, that's my last self-effacing insult about my inability to dance. I have to avoid dancing near my life partner because if she sees me doing it, she's like, okay, I can't have sex with you for 3 weeks now. Oh my God. I won't delete it, but I shouldn't have said it. All right. You want to share your social media? Everything is Jess Paul?
What I say about my social media, just Google Jess Paul. I'm the person.
Well, we'll make it a clickable link on here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'll tell you, Jeff.
In the show notes.
Yeah.
Clickable link. Well, I mean, I know your social media and website because it's in your email sig. It's in, I assume Sherman Oaks Film Festival is following you. I don't know.
I'm following them.
I don't do the social media much. Sometimes I jump into it.
Like I notice after a while, people will not, like, if they're listening to it, they'll not like type it in. If they're even seeing it that it's not hyperlinked, people will not click on it. So just go Google me if you're that interested, and I'm sure you can find me.
Right on. All right. Well, I will wrap us up. I'll do my closing spiel, which is thank you, Jess. Thank you for being here.
Jeff.
Thank you for being here in person.
Yeah, it's fun.
And
that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, it's so much better.
Yeah.
Although Zoom is not the worst thing ever, I get it, especially if someone lives far away. All right, so thank you everyone for listening to the Discover Indie Film podcast. If you want to learn more, go to discoverindiefilm.com. On social media, it's always at DIFwins. And I will add that I tried to be a little principled. So yesterday, Discover at DIFwins also appeared on Blue Sky. Because nice. I keep saying, like, I've actually given up social media except for Blue Sky. Uh-huh. That's why another staff member has to check all the festival stuff on, because I just can't. I will just
quit social media too.
I will share this with the world. I know it's bragging, but I stopped looking at Instagram and Facebook like 2 weeks ago. And after 3 days of not looking at them, like, wait, I open the app, close the app right away because like you open it out of habit.
Yeah, totally.
So like 3 or 4 days after not looking at Instagram anymore, and I kind of do miss the little piglet videos and the huskies and the guinea pigs and the rabbits, but my brain said, hey, why don't you read a book?
Sure.
And then I picked up my Kindle, and there was a book I'd wanted to read like a couple of years ago. I'm reading. Like I hadn't been able to find time to read for the last couple of years. Honestly, I was doing a lot of reading during COVID, obviously. So I just, if you don't think you have time to read, maybe less Instagram, because those algorithms, they're real and they're addictive. And by getting rid of the meta algorithms out of my life, I'm now reading an amazing book by Naomi Alderman. Read The Power. It's amazing. It's a dystopian future. Well, it's not dystopian, but it's a future where women develop the ability to electrocute men. You have an extra organ that was dormant and like some experimental, so it's an alternate world, but when all of a sudden men have to fear for their safety around women, what do you think that does to society?
Oh, I am so curious.
It's fucking great. It's really, really good.
It's interesting because, like, you know, men are, again, this is putting a whole 50% of people in a box, or less than that. No, we got all kinds of in-betweens. But not that that's new, but it's new to a lot of people. Men are, the cliche is that they're categorized as aggressors, but now if the women are the aggressors, then like how different of a world
but don't
is that?
assume aggressor, just assume that now a woman can if she's vulnerable, and because it first happens, of course, the ability is discovered during sexual assaults.
Okay.
So, but then society's reaction is, because it happens during puberty.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got to separate the boys and girls to protect the boys from the girls at school.
Yeah.
And is anyone doing, and are people, and then I'm reminded of like water polo players at Stanford who, you know, there was the unconscious girl who was being raped by a water polo star a couple years ago, and the judge said, well, we don't want to ruin a young man's life. Right?
Yeah.
So it's treated so different. Anyway, oh my God, I'm going off on this book. I got to get us out of here. All right.
I'm interested, yeah.
DiscoverIndieFilm.com is the website. @DIFWins is the social media, including Blue Sky. I'd rather you interact with Discover Indie Film on Blue Sky than other social media platforms, but I get it. We're not going to give up. People aren't going to give up Instagram. All right, so anyway, that's that. And if you want to check out cool shorts, go to Amazon Prime Video and type in Discover Indie Film there. It comes up right after Discover India. So anyway, Jess's film Bearing Baby was at Sherman Oaks Film Festival. We hold it every December. In fact, this year will be the 10th anniversary. So ShermanOaksFF.com is the website. @ShermanOaksFF is the social media handle everywhere. I guess I better make the Blue Sky for that soon.
Oh.
Maybe tomorrow, maybe today. And it does have a sister festival every June called Film Invasion Los Angeles. You can learn about that one if you go to filminvasionla.com, and it's @filminvasionla on social media. And thanks to some wonderful peeps, I think there's going to be a Film Invasion Peru in Lima, Peru. There's been false starts in many cities, but I think this one's going to happen.
Nice.
We almost had Film Invasion London, almost had Film Invasion San Francisco, almost had a couple others. But I think Film Invasion Peru is going to happen.
That's exciting.
International. And check out the website, indiechannel.tv. All right. Jess, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Jeff.
And the podcast after this is going to be fun and off the hook, too, because it's going to be you answering those 4 questions.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening.